How do you build great shoulders?
Don't you want to look good naked?
So when we're training our shoulders, we want to make sure that we understand all of the areas of our shoulders, right? So there's three main parts: the anterior or front delts, the lateral or side delts, also referred to as medial delts, and then the posterior or rear delts. So I should have started with what are delts. Delts are short for deltoids, and that is just what your shoulder is made of. So it's the fancy word for shoulder, deltoids. If we're looking to basically build our best shoulders or build our greatest shoulders, we want to make sure that we're training all of those enough, right? So for the front or anterior delts, that's going to be motions where we're coming up and kind of towards the midline of the body. So you can think of overhead presses or front raises, so either with a cable machine or a dumbbell. So those are going to be primarily your front delts. The lateral or side delts, or medial delts as they're called, are going to be more so your lateral raises. So if you think of any of the variations of lateral raises, whether it's with a dumbbell or cable, also Y raises, so dumbbell Y raises or cable Y raises, those are gonna work primarily your side or your medial delts. And then your posterior delts or your rear delts are going to be worked more so with pulling motions. So any pulling or rowing motion, rear delt rows with dumbbells or cables, rear delt flies, pull downs, those are gonna be really working your posterior delts. So that is just kind of giving you an overall kind of view of what we need to train when we're talking about shoulders, because there's kind of a lot. So you want to make sure that you're hitting all areas, your front, medial, and rear delts. Another thing to think about is how many, a lot of people ask, like, how much should I be doing? How many sets, reps? How often should I be training my shoulders, your shoulders? Everybody's shoulders. So first of all, no matter what you're focused on with any type of growth, whether it's with your shoulders, your butt, your arms, whatever it is, following a progressive training program that's smart, that's structured, is gonna be the most important thing. So just going in and doing random shoulder exercises at random times is gonna get you random results. So if you want great results, if you want to build great shoulders, making sure that you are following a program that incorporates all of the different areas of the shoulder with movements that work for you, that are movements that can be loaded, so meaning you can add load to those movements over time or weight to those movements over time. They line up with your structure. They work well with your personal, what you enjoy, right? All of these things play into that program. And if you really want, to know how many reps and sets and how much you should be training your shoulders per week, it comes back to the individual, it comes back to where you're starting, how advanced you are, or if you're a true beginner. So that can be all resolved if you join the Flex Fam, because I'll take care of that for you. So if you're training your shoulders and you're not getting the results you want, there's a few tips and tricks and mistakes that I've seen and that I've made myself to really focus on making sure that you're getting the most out of your training. So the first thing would be adding stability to the movement. So because shoulders are a smaller muscle group, especially if you're isolating the different areas of your shoulders, it's gonna be important to make sure that if your main goal is to create as much tension within those particular muscle fibers as possible, you wanna make sure that you're adding some stability to the movement so that other muscles aren't coming in and starting to quote unquote take over. So something that I really like to do is adding chest support to my movement. So whether that's a lateral raise or a front raise, I like to add a bench in front of me and do a chest supported version. So a chest supported dumbbell front raise will allow you to focus more on the muscle you're trying to work and less on creating stability within all other areas of your body. And not that stability is bad or anything like that. We want to, make sure that we're incorporating movements that allow you to train more stability, more core strength, things like that. But there's a time and place. If your main goal is to create as much tension in that specific muscle fiber as possible, you want to make sure that you are creating as much stability as possible. Another tip to think about, and this goes along with the stability side of things, is momentum. So if you've ever done a lateral raise before, it is really hard to not, what I call, have the wiggles or use some momentum to kind of bring that weight up. And again, if we're trying to get as much tension through that muscle tissue as possible, specifically with lateral raises, we're training our side or medial delts. we wanna make sure that we're not using too much momentum where the weight's kind of just flinging up and we're using other muscles in our body to do that versus targeting that muscle fiber particularly. So making sure that you're not incorporating a lot of momentum into the movement is important, or at least paying attention to that, and also knowing when and where to incorporate it, because momentum is not necessarily a completely bad thing. You can actually use momentum to manipulate certain exercises. So with a dumbbell lateral raise, if you're gonna choose that movement and you're looking to train that medial delt through its full range of motion, full contractile range of motion, you can choose a little bit lighter weights and do normal dumbbell lateral raises where you're focusing on control and holding at the top for a little bit and then coming down. And then you can choose heavier dumbbells and add a little bit of momentum at the bottom and actually focus on bringing the weight up a little bit fast so that it's heavier at the bottom and lighter at the top. That is actually allowing you to work the full range of motion of that muscle. There are other exercises that can create these different ways to work the muscle through the full range of motion, and that's gonna be using cables, for example, and potentially bands. So I really like using cables, especially for shoulder exercises, but if you only have dumbbells, that's kind of a way to, allow you to use momentum in the way that helps manipulate the exercise. But again, all coming back to what the goal is. So if the goal is to eliminate as much momentum as possible, you do want to make sure that you are creating as much stability as possible. But if you want to use momentum to your advantage, just make sure that you understand why you're doing it and what you're doing.
Women, we believe